Democrats emerged to ask for civility for Black Americans when they have not shown a shred of civility towards the rest of America.
Mr. Bongino, Dylan Roof is white. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know where you're going with this. So if he's white, that doesn't make him any better, or it was an awful thing he did, whether he was white or black. I'm not sure where you were going with this.
Dylan Roof was white.
And as to the chairman's comments about civility, the President of the United States of America has advocated violence, he has been divisive, and he has been the one that has caused what we see happening today, where people are trying to push back on his policies and where people are trying to have peaceful protests instead of violence, but he continues to call names and he continues to challenge people in very violent ways.
Meanwhile, after tens of millions of dollars worth of damage to New York City, former Clinton and Obama underling Loretta Lynch is called upon by New York Attorney General Letitia James to oversee a predictably pro-looters and neoliberal socialist instigator cleanup job, flying in the face of federal oversight. On top of that, Lynch isn't there to follow up on the millions of merchandise looted by peaceful protesters. Loretta Lynch is there to further apply pressure to an already crippled New York Police Department. As The Hill reported, New York Attorney General Letitia James said in a statement, "As we continue our investigation, I will continue to use every tool at my disposal to seek answers and accountability, and that includes calling on the sharpest minds to lend their expertise." Lynch added, "It is time to examine recent events to ensure that all New Yorkers receive truly equal protection under the law." You may recall Loretta Lynch launched the Strong Cities Network in 2015 at the United Nations with a panel of leftist U.S. mayors, including New York's de Blasio, who has thumbed his nose at the New York Police Department ever since.
I want to say to my fellow mayors, we are in the vanguard of change around the world, as the High Commissioner indicated, and we should hold ourselves to a high standard. We're able to do things locally that in many ways can set the pace for our national governments. And I think so many of us, through the work we've done in our cities, we understand something fundamental. The most powerful way to counter violent extremism is to go to the core. The core is intolerance. When we address intolerance, when we undermine intolerance, in the process we undermine extremism and violence. But I see the incredible opportunity of the Strong Cities Network as going far beyond the work of law enforcement, going to some of the things that all of us know we could do better. The nurturing of our youth, and particularly of youth leadership, positive leadership that can help to move other youth towards positive outcomes in our society.
This is a truly groundbreaking endeavor. By connecting municipal leaders, by facilitating information sharing, and providing training and other assistance where appropriate, the Strong Cities Network will help to fashion a global response to a global issue without losing sight of its inherently local roots. It will offer city leaders a way to learn from one another about successful initiatives and productive programs. By connecting these localities to one another, as this network, the Strong Cities Network, is doing, we will not only have a powerful way to lift up our communities worldwide, we will send a message from all of our voices about who we are and about what we aspire to be as an alliance of nations and a global community.
The Strong Cities Network is a network focused on supporting cities to prevent all forms of violent extremism. It is important to remember that while attention is currently focused on ISIS and the challenge of foreign fighters, the threat of other forms of violent extremism, not least extreme right-wing groups, remain critical and of critical concern to local authorities around the world and the communities that they represent.
That level of Islamophobia, that level of racism, that level of xenophobia creates its own counter-movement that we have to look out for. It's a challenge to American safety because it's animating other kinds of extremism and other kinds of violence against people of color and against folks who follow Islam.
Lynch had said the Strong Cities Network would have an international steering committee and an international advisory board run by the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, a leading international think tank based in London. Under their control, law enforcement measures for cooperating Democrat cities will be directed from the Institute for Strategic Dialogue and the United Nations, ignoring the U.S. Constitution, local officials, and the laws we all operate under. Other cities that have not officially signed on are being rewarded with equipment due to their interest in the Strong Cities Network. Meanwhile, former New York City Police Commissioner Bernard Kerik said 600 police officers were considering leaving the force amid protests in response to the death of George Floyd.
All right, Commissioner Kerik, how many police officers are in the hospital right now that the mainstream media is not talking about?
Well, you've had over 300, I think about 320 that have been injured. You have some in the hospital, but there were over 300 injuries. And the thing that scares me, Judge, I'm hearing close to 600 cops have either put in their papers or they're talking to the department about resigning or retiring.
While Mayor de Blasio unveiled a few reforms to the New York Police Department at the urging of a task force on racial inclusion, of which his wife is co-chairwoman, redirecting money from the police department to youth programs is among the proposed changes. The budget of the New York Police Department was nearly $6 billion in 2019. And now New York Comptroller Scott Stringer is calling for $1.1 billion to be cut from the New York Police Department budget over 4 years. How convenient that the New York Police Department would be targeted by Loretta Lynch's United Nations Police Force Steering Committee. It appears that defunding the police is simply the beginning, as Democrat cities are transforming their local police forces into internationally interested United Nations Armies that will crush any that oppose the will of the totalitarian left and its dismantling of America. John Bound reporting.